The noise is deafening. It is not just loud, it is a physical force that goes through the entire body. The explosion does not warn. It comes from nowhere and changes everything in a fraction of a second. There is the sound, the intense heat, the violent pressure against the chest, and then the strange silence broken only by the sharp ringing in the ears. Fear does not have time to arrive before, only after, when consciousness returns, and the body tries to move, but cannot in the same way. Pain comes in waves, starting as shock, evolving into something unbearable, screaming, consuming everything, and uncertainty settles in as a permanent weight. What happened? What was lost? How will living be now? War marks this moment in the body and memory so deeply that no peace treaty can erase it. For those who survive with a transformed body, that moment never really ends. It repeats itself in nightmares, in chronic pain, in each physical limitation that serves as a constant reminder that life was divided into before and after. War has a start date and end date in history books, but for those who survived with a transformed body, this clarity does not exist. There is no specific day when everything returns to normal, because normal ceased to exist. There is only the new and permanent reality of living in a body that does not respond as before, that hurts in ways that should not exist, that carries visible and invisible marks of violence that should have remained in the past, but continues present with each movement, each breath, each attempt to do something simple that was once automatic. When peace treaties are signed, when troops withdraw, when headlines disappear from the news, millions of people continue living a private war against their own bodies. They are civilians who were hit by explosions, by stray bullets, by bomb fragments. They are soldiers who return from the front lines with wounds that never completely heal. They are men, women, children, and elderly people whose bodies were irreversibly altered by violence. They do not return to what they were. There is no return. There is only forced adaptation to a new physical reality that no one chose, that no one asked for, that was simply imposed by the brutality of war. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel to support this type of content and allow these stories to continue being told, because the reality of living in a body permanently marked by war needs to be known, needs to be understood, needs to be remembered. These people cannot be forgotten when the world moves forward. Amputation is perhaps the most visible change, but it is far from the only one. There are those who have lost arms, legs, fingers, parts of the face. There are those who have suffered burns so severe that the skin was never the same again, that each touch causes discomfort, that looking in the mirror is a daily exercise in accepting the irreversible. There are those who have metal fragments still lodged in the body, impossible to remove surgically, causing chronic pain, limiting movements, serving as permanent physical reminders of the day the explosion happened. There are those who have lost internal organs, who need medical equipment for basic functions that the body can no longer perform alone. There are those who have damaged spines, destroyed nerves, reduced or completely eliminated mobility. Each of these physical changes brings with it a cascade of practical consequences. Waking up in the morning ceases to be simple. The body hurts even before getting out of bed. Getting up may require Herculean effort. Going to the bathroom, showering, getting dressed. All these actions that were once done without thinking now require planning, time, sometimes help from another person. The independence that was once guaranteed is now a luxury won with difficulty or simply lost. And each daily task becomes a reminder that the body has changed, that war is still there, present in the difficulty of doing things that should be natural. Physical pain is a constant companion for many. It is not just the acute pain of the first days after the injury, but the chronic pain that settles in and never goes away completely. It is the pain at the amputation site that throbs, that burns, that bothers, even when there is nothing there anymore. It is phantom pain, that cruel phenomenon where the brain continues sending signals from a part of the body that no longer exists, making someone feel itching, pressure, agony in a limb that was torn away. It is the pain in overloaded joints, in muscles that need to compensate for what was lost. It is the pain in scars that stretch, that inflame, that constantly remind of the violence suffered. It is the persistent headache, result of cranial trauma, It is the back pain of those who need to use wheelchairs or crutches. It is a pain that painkillers cannot always control, that interferes with sleep, that steals quality of life, that becomes part of the daily routine. Modern prosthetics are impressive in terms of technology, but they are not perfect replacements. Learning to use a prosthetic is a long, frustrating, and frequently painful process. The stump needs to heal properly. The skin needs to get used to the pressure. The body needs to learn new movement patterns. There are endless hours of physical therapy, of falls, of small progress that seems insignificant but represents monumental battles, and even when some level of proficiency is reached, the prosthetic will never be the original limb. It does not feel, it does not have the same response. It can hurt, it can break, it needs maintenance, it is expensive. And for many, especially in countries devastated by war, quality prosthetics are completely inaccessible, leaving these people with precarious options or no option at all. There are also those whose injuries are invisible to the eyes, but equally devastating. Traumatic brain injuries that affect memory, concentration, emotional control, personality. Damage to the nervous system that causes numbness, tingling, loss of sensitivity, or exaggerated sensitivity. Severe hearing problems caused by explosions, partial or total loss of vision, lung damage from inhalation of smoke, chemicals, or dust, cardiovascular problems, kidney damage, digestive complications. The body is an integrated system, and when war hits it, the consequences spread in unpredictable and lasting ways. Fatigue is another reality that few people from outside understand. The body that has been severely injured needs to work much harder to perform the same tasks. Compensating for an amputation requires extra energy. Dealing with chronic pain is exhausting. Healing internally takes time, sometimes years. Many survivors find themselves tired all the time, without energy for things they once did naturally. And this fatigue is not only physical, it is also emotional and mental, result of the constant effort to exist in a body that has become difficult. Physical limitations have direct impact on professional life. Professions that depended on physical strength, agility, complete mobility become impossible. A carpenter who loses an arm, a driver who loses his legs, a farmer who can no longer work the fields, a teacher who can no longer stand for long hours, a cook who lost his hands. Career dreams crumble, professional identities shatter, and rebuilding a professional life in a limited body is extremely difficult, especially when society is not prepared to genuinely include people with disabilities. Family relationships are completely transformed. Spouses become caregivers, which changes the relationship dynamic in deep and sometimes painful ways. There is love, but there is also tiredness. There is dedication, but there is also resentment that no one wants to admit. There is guilt on both sides. The caregiver feels guilty for getting tired. The one receiving care feels guilty for being a burden. Children see their parents change, and for small children, this can be scary and confusing. Parents see their adult children return from war unrecognizable, and the pain of seeing someone you raised suffer this way is indescribable. Siblings, friends, the entire network of relationships needs to adjust, and not everyone can. Many drift away, not out of malice, but from not knowing how to cope. Psychological trauma walks side by side with physical trauma. Post-traumatic stress disorder is common among survivors. Intrusive memories of the moment of injury return without warning. Nightmares are frequent and vivid. Loud noises cause panic reactions. Crowds provoke anxiety. Constant hypervigilance is exhausting. Many develop deep depression, result of loss of capacity, autonomy, identity. Anxiety about the future is constant. What will it be like to live like this forever? How to support the family? How to be a good father, a good mother, a good partner when one's own body is a constant limitation? Phantom pain deserves special attention because it is one of the most disconcerting and cruel experiences. Imagine feeling intense itching in a foot that no longer exists. Imagine feeling sharp pain in fingers that were amputated. Imagine your brain insisting that something is there when you can look and clearly see that it is not. There is no way to scratch. There is no way to massage. There is no possible physical relief because the source of the sensation no longer exists physically. It is a disturbing disconnect between mind and body, and for many, this sensation never completely disappears. Scars are permanent maps of violence suffered. Some are small, others cover large areas of the body. Some are flat, others are raised keloids. All tell stories of pain, of surgeries, of survival, and all attract looks of curiosity, of pity, of discomfort, rarely of simple acceptance. Children ask what happened. Adults quickly look away. And the person carrying these scars needs to decide every day how to deal with this unsolicited attention, whether to hide or expose, whether to explain or ignore. For children who survive with permanently altered bodies, the challenge is even greater. Their bodies are developing, and growing up with an amputation or other significant disability brings additional medical complications. Prosthetics need to be constantly adjusted as they grow. Multiple surgeries may be necessary. And beyond the physical, there is the emotional. Facing school with a visibly different body, dealing with bullying, feeling excluded from activities, forming identity amid all these differences. It is an enormous weight for someone so young to carry. The elderly who survive injured face an additional cruelty. Bodies already naturally weakened by age are even more vulnerable. Recovery is slower, adaptation is more difficult, and many find themselves dependent at a stage of life where they expected some peace, some rest. War steals even that from them, transforming what should be golden years into a daily struggle for basic survival. Access to adequate medical care is unequal and frequently insufficient. In countries devastated by war, health systems are overwhelmed or destroyed. Medications are scarce. Equipment is inadequate. Qualified professionals have left or been killed. Many survivors do not receive the treatment they need, do not have adequate follow-up, do not have access to continuous physical therapy, psychological support, quality prosthetics. They simply need to deal with their new physical realities as best as possible, frequently alone, frequently in circumstances of extreme poverty. Even in countries with better resources, support is often bureaucratic, slow, and insufficient. Veterans fight for benefits that should be guaranteed. Civilians discover there are no adequate support systems for them. Everyone faces long waits, unfair denials, complicated processes to access what they need. And meanwhile, the body continues hurting, continues limited, continues being a daily battle. Society in general is not prepared for real accessibility. Sidewalks without ramps, inaccessible public transportation, buildings without elevators, non-adapted bathrooms, jobs that do not make reasonable accommodations, looks of pity or discomfort instead of normalization. The constant message that society sends is that these bodies are problems, are inconveniences, are too different, and this adds a layer of social exclusion to the already difficult physical reality. And then there are the small but significant moments that constantly remind of the loss, not being able to open a jar alone, needing help to reach something on the high shelf, not being able to participate in certain activities with the children, feeling vulnerable in situations where there would once be confidence, seeing other people naturally doing things that are now impossible. Each of these moments is a small emotional wound, a reminder that the body has changed, that independence has been compromised, that war is still present. Some find ways to adapt impressively. They learn new skills. They discover capabilities they did not know they had. They find purpose in helping other survivors. They become activists for peace. Their stories of resilience are real and inspiring, but these stories do not nullify the pain. They do not make what happened acceptable. They do not mean that adaptation is easy or that suffering is overcome simply with positive attitude. Resilience coexists with pain. It does not replace it. The war ended on maps, in the news, in political speeches. But for those living in a body permanently altered by it, war never really ended. It is present in each pain, in each limitation, in each moment of frustration, in each sleepless night, in each look of pity received on the street. The body has become a living memorial of violence, a permanent testimony that war is not a political abstraction, but a brutal reality that destroys bodies and lives in irreversible ways. This video exists to remember that the official end of a conflict does not mean the end of suffering, to show that there are millions of people living with the permanent physical consequences of war. So that when we think of armed conflicts, we think not only of territories and strategies, but of real bodies that will be permanently damaged. People who deserve to live without pain, without limitations, without carrying in their own body the marks of violence that should never have existed. If this content touched you, leave your subscription to the channel, because these stories need to continue being told. The real physical cost of war needs to be remembered. And these people, living in bodies that never return to normal, cannot be forgotten.